Land doesn't lie, but people lie about land all the time, and sometimes the difference between the two takes 40 years to surface. This is Eastern Oregon, high desert country, late August, the kind of heat that makes the sagebrush smell like pepper and dust. The wind never really stopped that summer, it just changed direction. Ruth Callahan was 61 years old, with hands cracked white at the knuckles from lime and rope, and she was standing on 160 acres that everyone in 3 counties called worthless. The county records called it Parcel 14 North, but the old-timers called it the dry farm, because nothing on it had held water since 1961. It sat at the base of Table Rock, 160 acres of cheatgrass and juniper, with a farmhouse built in 1938 that leaned 2 inches west from 60 years of wind. Ruth's father had run sheep on the land before the well collapsed. He died owing $12,000 to a bank that no longer existed under that name. Ruth had spent 30 years teaching high school agriculture in Burns, 41 miles east, coming home most weekends to a place that could not, by any measure anyone trusted, grow anything worth the diesel to plant it. She knew soil. She knew rock. She knew the particular silence of land that had been given up on. What she carried, mostly, was a stubbornness her father used to call expensive, because it never let her sell, not when the offers came in '89, not when they came again in 2003. She kept a notebook, spiral-bound, the kind sold 3 for $1, and in it she wrote weather, not feelings. Rainfall, frost dates, the day the junipers budded. Nobody read it but her. In April, a land appraiser named Dennis Whitlock drove out from Bend in a clean white Case IH cap and a truck that had never seen a gravel road before that morning. He was 44, soft through the middle, carrying a tablet instead of a soil probe. He walked the property in 11 minutes. He measured nothing. He told Ruth the land was functionally dry, that the water table beneath Table Rock had been mapped in 1974 and hadn't changed, that Continental Trust Bank could offer $4,500 for the full 160 acres as a tax write-off parcel. Take it or leave it. Ruth mentioned, once, that there was a seep near the north fence line that never fully dried, even in August. Dennis smiled the way people smile when they've already stopped listening. That's just runoff, he said. It happens on dry ground too. He wrote his number down and didn't write hers. If you've ever been dismissed by someone with a title and a clipboard, stay with me. This is one of those stories. The kind where nobody raises their voice, where the wrong answer gets typed into a form and mailed out looking official, and where the only person who knew the truth was standing right there the whole time, holding a notebook nobody asked to see. Hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Ruth didn't argue with Dennis Whitlock. She went home, made coffee, and started walking the fence line at 5 in the morning, before the heat came up and before anyone else was awake to see her doing it. The first thing she found was the willows. 3 of them, stunted but alive, growing in a cluster near the north fence where nothing else grew green past June. Willows don't grow on dry ground. She wrote it down. April 14th, willows, north fence, 40 feet from post 6. Alive in August drought years 2, per memory. The second thing she did took 2 weeks. She borrowed a soil auger from her neighbor, a retired BLM range conservationist named Walt Pruitt, and hand-augered 6 holes across the seep area, each one 18 inches deep, logging moisture at every 6 inches with a simple probe. 5 of the 6 holes hit damp clay by 12 inches. 1 hit standing water at 14. She measured it with a tape twice to be sure. 14 inches. Cold. Tastes clean. She wrote that too because she tasted it, spitting the first mouthful out of habit before trying it again. The third clue came from her father's old ledger, water-stained and kept in a coffee can in the barn for 40 years. In it, in his handwriting, was a line from 1958. Sank test well end fence. 22 feet, good flow, capped, no pump money. He'd found it. He just never had the $2,200 it would have cost in 1958 to develop it. Ruth hired a licensed well driller out of John Day, a man named Kurt Iverson who used a Kubota-mounted rig small enough to fit through the gate. He confirmed it in one afternoon. An unmapped spring-fed aquifer pocket, shallow, consistent, capable of 6 gallons a minute. Enough, easily, for livestock and a modest garden, maybe more with the right pump. The 1974 county survey Dennis had quoted her had never physically tested this corner of the parcel. It had been extrapolated from a well 2 miles south. The meeting happened in a back office at Continental Trust, the kind with a folding table and a window unit rattling in the corner. Dennis was there, along with a loan officer named Carol Ashby, who'd inherited the file and, unlike Dennis, actually asked a question. Has anyone tested the north corner directly? Nobody had. Ruth had. She laid the notebook on the table, then the county-certified well log from Iverson's crew, then her father's coffee can ledger, opened to the 1958 entry. She didn't say much. She let Carol read it. The room went quiet in a specific way, not dramatic, just still, the kind of stillness where you can hear the window unit again. Dennis looked at the log twice, like the numbers might change. They didn't. The $4,500 offer, based on a 50-year-old regional survey, had assumed 0 developed water rights. The actual land, with a certified 6-gallon-per-minute spring, appraised independently 3 weeks later at $61,000. The difference wasn't a rounding error. It was a decision someone had made without walking the fence line. Ruth didn't sell. She developed the spring herself, financed through a $9,000 USDA rural water grant, and ran a line to a 500-gallon tank by the barn. Word moved through Burns the way it does in small towns, slow, then all at once, mostly through the feed store. 2 neighbors had Iverson test their own dry corners. One found nothing. One found a trickle worth capping. Dennis Whitlock still works for Continental Trust. Nobody blamed him outright. He'd followed the file he was given. Carol Ashby now requires a physical water test before any parcel gets listed as dry. Ruth kept teaching in Burns for 4 more years. She still keeps the notebook. It's on volume 6 now. Land remembers longer than paperwork does. Somewhere under every dismissed offer, every 50-year-old survey, every tired afternoon walkthrough, there's a fact waiting for someone patient enough to kneel down and check. Ruth never called it justice. She called it Tuesday. The wind still comes down off Table Rock every August, same as it always did. It just doesn't carry dust the way it used to. Not near the fence line, not anymore.